Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Happy Monday. If you're new, welcome, guys. We do these Monday trainings usually every Monday. Bring to you either a health topic, talk about one of our products, combination of the two. And if you are a repeat, welcome back. We love having you guys. Thanks so much. So if you are one that thinks that probiotics are just for those to take if maybe they suffer from constipation, bloating, gas, then this training is for you because probiotics are involved in so much more.
And that's right. Listen up, Ben.
Yeah, right. I remember that was actually a question that Ben asked us. He said,
why should I be taking?
Yeah,
my stomach feels bulletproof. It's iron. I have an iron gut.
Yes, and it's honestly it's a common thought by many people. So we want to teach you. We really want to heavily focus on one part of how the gut and probiotics affect other aspects. If you don't follow us, make sure you follow us and like, comment, share, all the above. We love your feedback. It helps us and it also helps you.
And we'll be looking for engagement. So please write in, comment, questions.
Yes. If you have questions pertaining to the topic, we will always address them towards the end, at the end. So make sure you're writing them in. Okay. So gut microbiome, heavy topic. And, we always try to keep these, on the shorter side. So that's why we're focusing on one key principle of this. But your gut microbiome is your body's emotional control center. When your gut is out of balance, your mood is often out of balance. And that's where we want to really dive into the gut-brain connection without getting too scientific, right? As our goal, right? We're trying to bring this to the masses in a very explanatory way that everybody can understand. So we have our gut. It's home to trillions of microbes, right? What do you want to refer to? Like little bugs, right? A bunch of them. Good, bad, right? So collectively, though, that's what's known as our gut microbiome. And they do far more than just aid in digestion, help bloating, help with regularity. And there's a lot of research going into this. So research over the past decade has revealed this connection between the gut microbiome or the gut microbes and the brain. So this is often referred to as, whether you've heard this or not, it's the gut-brain axis. Do you want to talk about the gut-brain axis? You want me to keep going?
I love it. No, you're on a roll.
Okay. So the gut-brain axis really refers to like this network of connections that link the GI tract with our central nervous system. So things go back and forth. It's not a one-way streak. Disturbances in your gut bacteria, which is also known as dysbiosis, have been linked to psychiatric conditions like depression, anxiety, and just cognitive changes. So this is a big one because we are in this epidemic of big mood disorders, depression, anxiety, neurodegenerative diseases, the whole combination.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Just continuing to rise. And many times, the patient goes to the doctor with these symptoms of, let's just say, depression. And the doctor, does their general questionnaire, and then they end up going on some type of medication, right, to help. But rarely is it ever looked at to let's take a few steps back and let's address the gut. This is what we talk about a lot with lifestyle functional medicine, is addressing the root cause, digging deeper, and not just you're depressed because your boyfriend broke up with you, not something like that. More digging deeper physiologically as to what could possibly be going on in the body. So back to this gut-brain axis, though. So like I said, it's a bidirectional, right? So the brain affects the gut affects the brain. We know when we are stressed, we might have GI issues, right? We might lose our appetite. We might get diarrhea. Things happen with what stress does to our body. But it also causes a microbial imbalance, right? So it's not just like a little quick thing that goes on. And then vice versa, right? As we said, it goes back and forth. So big picture is about our mental well-being. It's closely intertwined with health and the composition of the gut microbiome. I want to talk about, and maybe you can do this a little bit more, with the neurotransmitters that are affected. So in our gut, we produce a variety of chemicals that influence the nervous system.
Of course.
So you've probably heard about these before, but neurotransmitters: serotonin, dopamine, GABA, glutamate.
Oh,
These
yeah.
are very common that we hear about when we hear about mood.
Right.
Right. Mood and the brain. So I don't know if you want to dig.
Well, I do remember doing a bit of a discussion on this on our last time talking about gut support. I think as it was related to stomach, but also weight loss and some of the other things.
Yes,
right. So
yeah.
today we focus on the brain,
Yes.
which I know I did talk about it last time, but it's definitely worth a quick recap because it's so important. But you're looking at when you talk about neurotransmitters, you talk about hormones, you talk about enzymes, you talk about all these different things that rely upon chemical messengers. And that's what I think bacteria do a really good job at. They act as chemical messengers, but they also act as cofactors, and they help to synthesize certain micronutrients, so certain really important vitamins and minerals and such, And there's a whole thing around this probiotic research with prebiotics, obviously the substrate or the food that the bacteria feed on, the probiotic, the actual living enzyme, the living culture.
Right.
And then of course, postbiotic, right? So some of the beneficial byproducts of that metabolism. So, all of this stuff or surrounding this is so impactful when you start to think about it being so heavily involved as a precursor to the neurotransmitters. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's how I started this thing. So I kind of went. So neurotransmitters. So 30 plus neurotransmitters. I mean, so many of them are not only just are they synthesized in the gut lining, they're stored in the gut lining. So when you start thinking about the gut-brain axis, and you're like, all right, well, look, we're going to treat this major depressive disorder or this generalized anxiety disorder, we're going to treat it as a brain disease, right? They're really focused on the brain component, right? They're focused on the drug doing something in the brain to help improve the amounts, say, of serotonin or norepinephrine,
Yes.
which you see a lot, right? Some of the top prescribed drugs are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So they're trying to increase the amount of serotonin that the brain has available, and they're keeping it in that synaptic cleft. But so that whole chemical process completely neglects the fact that most 70% of our serotonin is synthesized and stored in our gut lining. Right. And so, and then not to mention that, and I'm not bashing the SSRIs because I'm just trying to bring it's more educational, because what ends up happening with SSRIs then is that it becomes sort of, there's an expectation of this drug to do something for you, sure. Right? So now you stay on this drug. Then you have trouble if you want to come off the drug, tapering off the drug. Then you have issues with drug-induced nutrient depletions. Then you have issues with side effect profiles like the erectile dysfunction and certain sexual dysfunction that you see with this class of meds. So yeah, and there's a whole lot of downstream effects of trying to just attack one particular spot on a pathway, right? So when you look at root cause, you say, yeah, all of these different neurotransmitters, a lot of them have an origin in the gut. So serotonin, we just talked about, norepinephrine, right? Dopamine, the reward center we talk about with these food scientists trying to find the pleasure zones and the different, they're like addiction drug centers. Yes. We did talk about this before. We say it a lot, I know, but it just shows you how powerful food can be. And and so the way that it's being used against us too, is kind of sort of being weaponized. And then you have the glutamate, Lisa just talked about, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter. And then you have GABA, which is a depressant like neurotransmitter, inhibitory neurotransmitter. So, and they all play this really important balance of homeostasis, right? I mean, GABA is so important in our learning, in our relaxation, in our sleep. And, you see a lot of compounds that work to help improve GABA, a lot of natural compounds. And so the importance of establishing a healthy microbiome that enhances the body's utilization, whether it's synthesis, whether it's storage or release of these neurotransmitters. So you talk about the brain, talk about the gut, and now you can see this intricate relationship between the two. And it's no surprise. I mean, like you said, the root cause component, we're missing it so drastically. We're just kind of right over it, focused on the therapy only component. Because I recognize, and this too, right? It's super hard to sit here and say, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to correct your microbiome.
Right.
That's a big lift.
I mean, that's
a heavy push up right there.
It is constantly changing too. So
which part?
Your gut.
Oh, the gut is. Oh, of course. So I'm going to pause just on that because I feel like we'll come back more.
Yeah,
to
sure.
How do you weed out the gut? How do you seed it? And then how do you feed it? Right. Like that. We really got to kind of have to talk about that whole process.
Sure.
But, it's just, there's a lot to unpack in there.
It's a lot. It's a heavy topic. So that's why also we're just trying to pull out the really important things for you guys to understand to help you see the big picture. But I also want to pull in this immune and inflammatory response, which is part of the whole, if you want to call it like a little vicious cycle that goes on. Okay, we know that your immune system lies in your gut. Like it's becoming more and more apparent. Like even if someone's chronically getting sick, your mainstream doc might be telling you now, get on a probiotic, right? We need to work on your immune system. You've been in here like, 3 times in 6 months getting sick. Like let's get on a probiotic, which is awesome. I'm happy that's starting to go into there. But really, like when you bring into the inflammatory signaling response. So say you have a really imbalanced gut microbiome. Say you're horrible diet. You're doing, all this negative stuff to your body and your gut. And then you've heard of the term maybe leaky gut. It's not a medical diagnosis, but it's really just what they refer to in like the tight junctions in your gut lining are a little more open. So like inflammatory compounds get out. So these
cytokines.
They're toxins.
They're inflammatory mediators. Right. They're basically telling your body, hey, there's an invader here. Watch out. We need to go to work.
Yes. So this huge inflammatory response happens.
Recruitment, right.
And one of the biggest factors in neurodegenerative diseases is inflammation.
Right.
So like think about all this connection. So you have all this inflammation going on because of what's happening in the gut. And therefore it's causing everything that's going on in the brain. I mean, it's really crazy and scary. So, but it also goes back to like, not just taking, like probiotics, but also it's like what we put in our body, how we fuel our body. It is a major component. And I just had to throw it out there too. I think about children and because it's a constant battle with our kids, to get them to eat healthy, and our kids know better because, we educate them, but they're still a kid. A kid's going to be a kid. They're also going to be influenced what their buddy's eating at lunch and what they're eating at birthday parties.
This is true.
So it's really hard, but also the rise of mental health that's going on in children. And you have to just think about how much of that goes back to the gut.
Right. Because
they are not taking good care of their guts. They are eating junk anytime they can squeeze junk into their house.
Sure.
So there is actually an inflammatory hypothesis of depression. So this kind of just highlights the whole thing. So many patients with depression have elevated inflammatory markers and enriched pro-inflammatory gut bacteria with fewer anti-inflammatory species. So just highlights, like the research is there. They are studying this constantly. They're highlighting it. I mean, there's no hiding it. It's real.
No, yeah, it is real. And like you said earlier, with the leaky gut or the permeability, the increased permeability in the gut lining, it's that low grade inflammation. The body doesn't know when to shut off. If there's this constant leakage, this signaling that can be recruiting all these other inflammatory mediators, and the body's sort of always in this sort of lower grade chronic inflammation state.
Right.
And that's the stuff that wears you down.
Sure.
Yeah, right. Not the heavy dose of inflammation because you hurt yourself.
Sure.
Or you're sick. Right. And so it's a hypothesis, and they're still trying to work through it. I agree with Lisa. It's not a medical term, or it's not a medical diagnosis, but they've started identifying that the blood-brain barrier has some of these similar characteristics.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. And I know when we talk about leaky gut, just to bring it up, I know a lot of people have heard of like, if you have food intolerances, and maybe you've done like a food intolerance test with your doctor, and it's great because we typically have these intolerances because of something that's leaking out and your body's attacking it. So therefore you can't tolerate it anymore. Mm-hmm. But rarely is it talked about the inflammation that is going on, right? It's not just, I can't have green beans because they were on my food intolerance test. Well, like you've got a lot of, if you have a lot of food sensitivities, there's a lot of inflammation going on, right? So that really has to be addressed. Also with cognitive function. Okay, that's a big one. So memory, learning, obviously we talked about being more at risk for neurodegenerative diseases, but there is this evidence that the gut bacteria can influence processes like neuroplasticity and neurodevelopment, thereby affecting our cognition. So just right there, you just think like, okay, I should be taking a probiotic just so I can have better cognition. I can have better neuroplasticity. Like, this is not just to treat something. This is not a probiotic. You're not taking it just to treat a gut problem.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
You're taking it to prevent things from happening. You're wanting to give it have a diverse microbiome so you can have wonderful cognition. prevent these neurodegenerative diseases. I mean, we have to do everything that we can, right? We don't want to fall down that road, that path.
Yeah. I mean, considering the amount of so-called dysbiosis that we're seeing, I think you're right. I mean, historically, many, many years ago, you probably didn't need a gut probiotic, right? I mean, you probably got it plenty out of your food. Other
Right.
nations that still rely upon a lot of fermented foods for storage because they lack refrigeration and different things, you don't see the same chronic disease incidents that we have here, right? Or in other like civilized nations. So
sure,
there's something to be said about, of course, the way that our food, not only our food science, so our artificial stuff, but also the way that we've taken natural foods and figured out ways to store them in longer periods of time when they're not as nutrient dense. Yeah, there's all this stuff, right? I guess is what I'm trying to say. So our environment now almost necessitates the use of a probiotic.
Sure, definitely. And yet in the studies that they're doing with depression, anxiety, right? And they're testing their gut microbiome, and they're finding that those with depression or those in a very anxious state have altered gut microbiomes compared to the non-depressed or non-anxious people. I mean, they're seeing this. It's not hard to test the gut microbiome, but it's not a mainstream thing that's done. That's why we always suggest about seeking out a functional medical doctor. And unfortunately, yes, these are out-of-pocket expenses. But it's also important to know this stuff if you've got anything going on. There was a study I was reading just about fecal transplants. This is how they do a lot of their research on it. But they took a very high anxious person. They did a fecal transplant into mice. And then these mice had, this is depression. These mice had depression-like behavior post fecal transplant. So, I mean, this is a real thing. And then I find this just fascinating is all the studies that they're doing on identical twins. And, so you might have these identical twins and one is healthy, rocking and rolling through life. And this other one is maybe they're depressed, maybe they're obese, maybe they're the one that gets cancer and all this stuff. And when they when they break it down, because they're identical twins, genetically, they're alike. It's all about the gut microbiome. Their gut microbiomes are different, which is just crazy to think, because back to our original training on our on our probiotic,
sure,
we did touch on like the obesity factor as it is, because same thing, it happens to be what's going on in the gut. And the gut can be altered very easily just by nurturing it properly. Like I said, we said it's forever changing. Like if you're like, oh no, what if I have a horrible microbiome? It's okay. You just have to do the things that you need to do to improve it. I mean, it is very easy to change. But
I will say it's a lot like a tourist though, right? So like we've talked about the gut being its own ecosystem, right?
Yes.
Well, imagine that it's its own economy, right? Well, or its own city or town. The probiotic act is a tourist. They come in, they visit. Hopefully they provide some good by spending money, by providing, giving the local town resources to build, so, but then it leaves. And so, and it goes away, and they have to continue to replenish that. So a probiotic is not a one-time kind of one course and done.
Right.
I mean, it can be in certain instances, right? There are certain yeast or bacteria things that you can supplement for like if you're a lot of diarrhea, you can supplement with certain yeast. But anyway, what I'm saying is that think about probiotic support as just in addition to, right? On top of, as part of a plan.
Sure,
to
definitely
improve the biodiversity of the microbiota.
100%. And like you said, to improve the biodiversity. So, I mean, in our probiotic, there are how many strains? There are how many? 10? Yeah, there are 10 strains, 60 billion each. So, say you have 6 billion. Sorry. Say you have your get a stool sample, you get your microbes all tested, and you're low in a specific one. That's why Ryan was referring to maybe you can treat. So maybe it's like, let's just say Akkermansia. When I had mine tested, I was not low in Akkermansia. There was no need for me to be taking that specific supplement. So It's good to know. I mean, it's great, this marketing out there, how great Akkermansia is, and it is. But if your gut microbiome is not low in Akkermansia, you don't need more of it. It's a diversity. So there's certain ones that are great to like treat specific things going on, but you also really want like a well-rounded one that can help keep that microbiome diverse and growing and populating. And then also in here is the prebiotics, right? The prebiotics feed the probiotics. They need to eat something. They need to keep going. That's why you also need to eat the proper foods, and it just helps flourish the whole thing. It's like a little forest in there. You want to make it nice and pretty.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, good analogy.
No,
so what do we do, right? We talked about nutrition, eat more fiber, fiber-rich foods.
That's an easy one. I don't know why people miss that so easily. Fiber is one you can get easily.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you have those that are on like carnivore diets and like are specific, I mean, make sure you're taking a fiber supplement, please. I mean, you need the fiber. Fermented foods. I know a lot of people don't like kimchi or stuff like that. Kombucha. I mean, I love kombucha, so that's always good there. Yogurt. We all like yogurt. Or not, can't say we all, but most people like yogurt.
Gotta watch the sugar though. Again, I've said that before. Sure. Anything that's sweetened or flavored.
Well, get your plain
sugar. Kombucha is the same thing. Lots of sugar. Yeah. Usually.
Sure. Get your plain yogurts, right? If you want to make them sweeter, add some berries, right? We don't need to buy sweetened yogurts. Kefir, pourable, drinkable yogurt, sauerkraut. And sometimes say you don't like kimchi. I mean, it's kind of potent.
It is.
But you don't have to eat a lot of it. Like you could have a bite a day. Like you don't have to eat that much of it. So to help, feed your body, and then just following a great Mediterranean style diet, right? I mean, this is not a diet. It's a healthy way of eating. And this is how we should all be doing. Cut back on sugar and processed foods. Like these are we all need to be doing this. We talked about the supplements, prebiotics, probiotics, guys. I mean, you have this in here. It is so easy to do. And again, this is something I'll get the question like, well, how long do I need to be on a probiotic? And as we just talked about, how it's forever changing. Like you have to take this all the time. Like you should be taking this daily.
Again, that's sort of the reason why I went for the approach I went with picking the probiotic strains. And if you notice, we do list the strain, which is super important. That's a full disclosure, high transparency thing because most companies don't. But I was going for a couple of things. I wanted to go for well-studied, so established. I wanted to go for shelf stability. I wanted to have a shelf life at room temperature. And I wanted to go for a really good biodiversity at a clinically effective dose. So that's where the selection process kind of was residing in my brain. Of course, there are other strains that we would pick and choose if possible to add into or use at other selective times. But I would say overall, this has been an excellent supplement.
Yes.
That I recommend for virtually everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And a question just how to take.
Yeah.
It is best to take on an empty stomach if you can, but say you forgot.
Right.
Guys, get it in there. Get it in there. Getting it in there is better than not. It's not going to hurt you, but it's best to take on an empty stomach. So we usually say like first thing in the morning, or right before you go to bed. Either one of those, you're typically on empty, or you should be on empty.
So. Yeah. They're going back to what I said earlier about like kind of the weed, the feed, and the seed concept, like a garden. You want to start with kind of clearing out some of the overgrowth that you might have. So if you have a nutritional physician or a naturopath or functional medicine doctor that can help you with guiding you through the possibility of having an overgrowth of bacteria, that would be beneficial. Maybe it's a certain maybe it's a certain fasting protocol that you can work with, but you got to try to figure out a way to eliminate some of these pathogenic bacteria. And believe it or not, sometimes it's antibiotics, which is a crazy thing. But and then you want to reculture. So you want to seed. You want to kind of give the body, give the microbes everything they need to thrive. And that includes the prebiotics, the substrate that they feed on, healthy substrates that they feed on, which is, of course, usually fiber. But then you got to continue to feed that and nourish that, though, because you will not get an amazingly biodiverse microbiome just by taking this alone. You are going to need to add in these other foods that we just talked about. I swear that is like the key. I mean, that's absolutely key. So that's your environment. You got to really nurture that environment with food. And I said this before, and I'll say it again, but when you can source local, when you can buy from local food suppliers, you're getting locally grown. It's going to be more ripe. It's going to be more nutrient dense, higher in phytonutrients, and it's going to have more beneficial plant compounds in those foods or in those meats to help your body and your gut microbiome thrive. So
definitely. Someone asked a question on what's the difference between probiotics in a capsule and liquid form. Are there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you run it. You don't see many liquids. You could send it for my review. I'm not a huge fan of liquids because they degrade rapidly. And they can certainly be contaminated. Aqueous solutions are very, very challenging from a stability perspective. Very, very, very challenging. like to the point where I really, not many that I know of that could pass the test of stability.
Right.
Capsule wise though, capsules are easy. And capsules are, this one actually is a extended release capsule. So we were able to make that. So that's beneficial for surviving some of the gastric pH.
Right. Because, there is like that myth out there. Like there's no point on taking probiotics because everything's just going to die off in the stomach acid. There's some can for sure.
And I mean,
you're having, yes, but you're having 60 billion in here. They're not all dying off.
No, but you're also recognizing that the impact that is a normal process with the body's
everything.
You want to provide exactly
right.
But blister packaging was important for us just to keep the stability, so keeping out light, humidity, and moisture, temperature, heat, and humidity.
Yes. I love this comment. Just
please.
Better with Tammy says gut health also has effects on your skin.
Does
and can contribute to conditions like psoriasis.
For sure.
So those skin conditions are inflammatory responses. So it just kind of goes into that whole inflammatory cycle that's going on. So you're not just gonna see things issues coming in your gut, right? This is what we talk about. It's going to be coming in your brain. Like example, when one of our daughters eats. Say we're on vacation, so we're eating out a lot and maybe a lot of gluten, just certain things. I mean, she gets eczema, right? Mm-hmm. The inflammation going on. But when we come home and we clean everything up because we're eating at home, it completely goes away. So you can see things appear all over your body, not just to deal with your gut. Trying to breeze through here and see if I see any more questions relating to this. Can we take it uncapped? So can they open up the capsule and mix it in with like super?
You'll lose the delayed release mechanism of the capsule.
Okay.
And it is a plant capsule, but yeah, you can do that. You can open it.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Is it better to take enzymes separately from probiotics?
Well, we have enzymes in here actually. That's part of so we have the prebiotic complex. We have the Jerusalem artichoke, which is organic. We have the blue agave, which is organic. So that's a great, again, substrate for the bacteria to feed on. We've included digestive enzymes because I think that's an area that is now becoming, say, more focused to help people improve their gut health and to improve the amount of nutrients that are absorbed from our foods. So yeah, no, I see no issue with combining the digestive enzymes, clearly, because I combine them in the gut support product. But
yes, big
fan of digestive enzymes for sure.
Yes. Yep. Someone was just asking, can you take them? Like we said, take them first thing in the morning on empty. Most people wake up, have coffee. Yes, you can have them with coffee. What else then?
I mean, that's
I think
a lot of the
price, guys. Let me just tell you the price. If you're a member, $16.95. If you're new to us and don't know what our membership option, it's an option. It's $9.95 a month or $99.95 for the year, and that gets you the membership pricing. So I just told you $16.95 versus retail $19.95. If to become a member, I mean, it makes sense if you're buying more than 2 products a month, you are actually going to save. So it works out in your favor. So, I mean, great stuff. So just make sure, like, again, the biggest thing we wanted to address here is that this amazing supplement here is not just for somebody that is dealing with known gut issues like IBS, constipation, gas, bloating. It is so much more. And again, how we are in this epidemic of brain health, right, mental health epidemic, should I say? And this goes across the board from children through adults. It is so important to go beyond just thinking of like I need to go get on a medication because I'm depressed. Take steps back and see what you can heal in your body first before you jump to that medication. Now, I'm not saying medications are all horrible. Like they're necessary for certain reasons, but you're not fixing the root cause. You are just blanketing it. You are just band-aiding it. So we want to make sure we're taking care of ourselves from inside out.
And there's nothing wrong with doing both. If you're already established on a medication, there's absolutely nothing wrong.
Sure.
With investing in improving your gut health.
And maybe you have a goal to, I'm on this medication. It's working really well for my brain. Perfect. I feel great, but awesome. I do want to get off it. Get started on this. Right. Start building that beautiful forest of yours, right? Start cleaning it up, making it flourish, and then see how you do. Maybe talk to your doctor and see, maybe your doctor's like, all right, let's try a month of you not on it and see how you do. And maybe You'll surprise yourself. You do
Yeah.
great. So remember, these act like tiny therapists in your gut, helping to calm your nervous system, balance your brain chemistry, lift your mood naturally. So make sure you get on your probiotic today.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for joining us so much. And until next week.
See you guys.
Have a great one.
Take care now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.